3 years ago, I got the chance to try out these awesome homemade GameCube Joy Cons made by Shank Mods, and in the time since they've come out, a little suspiciously, we've started to see a couple more GameCube Joy Con options come out. So I thought, what better way to celebrate all their releases than to bring Shank back and kind of look at a few of these, because as you may tell, we got a bit of a full table here.
There have been quite a lot's happened in the 3 years since I made those.
Just a couple came out. I mean,
Yeah,
some of
just a few.
admittedly, some of these are older, but I just kind of thought, you know, let's get them all on the table. So there's a lot of choices here. Some are Joy-Cons, some are more traditional controllers, some are kind of technically neither. I think before we start going through them, though, I do want to ask you, because a lot of these have their own different takes.
Yeah.
What to you is like the definitive, because I have in my own mind what I want to look for a GameCube controller, or like what makes something, you know, GameCube style to me.
Yeah.
But like, what's the defining thing for you? Like, what are you going to immediately test when we pick these up?
I'm gonna push all the buttons, and I'm gonna see how the buttons feel. Like kind of the actuation of the sticks, kind of how the sticks feel when you're moving the stick back and forth, and when you're pressing the buttons, like to make sure they feel. Because if you've ever tried a third-party GameCube controller versus a first-party GameCube controller, they look exactly the same, but if you hold one and then hold the other and press the buttons and the sticks, it's completely different.
Right. I mean, an easy example here, right? This is actually one that came out before your video.
Yes.
But when Smash Brothers Ultimate was coming out, we had a lot of companies making GameCube-style controllers, and so one we have here as an example is the PowerA one.
Yes.
And you can even look at, where's our regular one? Well, here's... Yeah, this is the official OEM one that came out later for Smash.
The Ultimate one. Yeah.
So even there, you have that side-by-side comparison.
So this one, they were quite popular when the GameCube controllers were, you know, really hard to get at the time. People wanted them, and although it looks very, very similar, when you feel it, it feels kind of cringe. The buttons are very they just don't feel right. It feels like definitely feels third party, like you know, Mad Catz.
From back in the day.
For those who remember Mad Catz before the Fight Stick days.
Yeah, I choose to focus on their Fight Stick days. I don't think back to like PS2 third party controller days. But yeah, absolutely, it's the button feel, right? Because I remember, I mean, you know, again, multiple companies were making GameCube controller style knockoffs when Smash came out, and out of them, I liked this one the most. But that was mostly because it just shape and grip wise felt the most similar. Ultimately, if you had the choice to use an OEM option, which, you know, had to be wired, this was the better way to go. It was just hard to get a hold of them.
Yeah, for sure.
But yeah, since then we've had a lot more come out.
Yeah.
Is there anywhere you'd like to start?
I think we should start with kind of like the first ones that came out. These came out after I started my video, but before I posted it. They're more like GameCube inspired, and these actually weren't as bad as I expected them to be. They're very, if you're familiar with the feel of the Game Boy Advance SP, like that's about what the buttons feel like, which I actually really like. So the buttons, I wish they would protrude a little more.
Yeah, they're very flat.
They're very flat and low profile, and like they're kind of small. But other than that, like the actual actuation feels great.
Yeah.
And what's weird about the sticks is that even though it's got these like visual gates there,
They do nothing.
The gates,
the gates do nothing.
Purely like visual,
right?
And the switches on it, like it feels very similar to the original Joy-Cons in that. So like if you like the original Joy-Cons, you know, it's about on par with
I'm trying to remember, because I remember you had seen these before, but the first time you actually had them in person was when you came out for the first video.
Yeah.
And I remember you tried them out, and your immediate thing was like, can I open this? Because there was something you wanted to double check. Was it the A button? Or
no,
was
it was the sticks. I wanted to see what sticks they used on the inside of these, because I went to this and I'm like, okay, these caps, like what's going on here? Like these would make, because we use, for a lot of Wii portables we build, we'll use Joy-Con sticks because they're very low profile. And funny enough, we haven't had like problems with drift. In the portables. So a lot of us joke, because once we build a portable, we don't play it, we just build more portables. But people who have who have done commissions, and the customers have never had issues with Joy-Con drift. So I think Joy-Con drift is like, there could be lots of other factors, like
not just the stick module itself, but like part of the full assembly.
Well, yeah, like the voltages you're running to it. Similar to, there was a Logitech mouse where it wasn't reaching saturation voltage, and also the fact that for Wii portables you don't click the sticks like you do on these, so it's not applying as much pressure.
Yeah.
But those, so it's like a similar mechanism to the Joy-Con on the inside, but it's slightly different, like for the cap.
I know one of the ones I want to talk about next, because I do want to focus a little bit on the Joy-Con style ones first. We'll talk about some of the just straight up wireless controllers. But I want to talk about the Retroflag one.
Okay.
Because you brought this one along, and this is kind of ties a little bit into what I was saying earlier about, like, you know, what makes something a GameCube style controller to you.
Yes.
Because I don't know if this counts. It's got the color scheme, and this is nothing against like the controller itself. I actually do like, I've been messing around with this one a little bit since you brought it, and it actually feels pretty good.
Yeah.
But I don't know if it necessarily is what I would go for if my goal was I want something GameCube style. Because as you can see, we still have like the more traditional ABXY setup here. You know, the C-Stick is a nub style as opposed to having like a full
I think
head.
the C-Stick is real. Like, aside from the colors, the C-Stick is kind of what does it there.
Right.
And the fact that the buttons are really big, even though they're in that formation. Like when we were looking at the Ioneo 2, which you're going to do a video.
That is a future video I'm working on.
Yeah, you were going to subscribe for that. That thing's really cool.
Do my subscribe shoutouts just for me. I don't even have to deal with them, but please do.
Yeah. So the buttons on these, this one just showed up in my PO box randomly, and I don't do reviews and stuff, so like I don't know why these companies send me stuff, but I guess it worked because here I am like giving a review of this. But this one actually, I don't hate it. So I don't hate how it feels. It doesn't feel like super great, but it doesn't feel awful. Like I would.
It's not off-putting to you.
Yeah, it's not like. We'll get to some others later, but the descent into madness. But the buttons feel like the actuation's actually pretty good. The sticks feel solid, and it's actually not too uncomfortable. The grips, the shape's weird because it's got the grip there. It's kind of like, it reminds me of the Wii U gamepad, where if you like how that felt, like the kind of lumps there.
Yeah.
Where it's like there's lumps there, but it doesn't fill your hands.
Well,
I
think it's one of those things where it's extremely dependent on your hands, though, right?
Absolutely.
Like I think palm size plays a big role. Because for me, this actually feels like a pretty decent wraparound.
Yeah.
There's a little bit of like a digging into my palm a bit, but the way my fingers land on it actually is pretty comfy.
Yeah.
But again, not everyone's hands are the same.
Yeah.
So
the one thing,
that's where it becomes an issue.
I don't like. I wish this kind of went in more. Like it was kind of like this part here was like deeper there. But aside from that, it's like it's not bad, and it's like from what I've seen, I didn't pay for it myself, but I've seen they don't seem too expensive. So I would.
Bang for your buck situation.
Yeah, bang for buck.
All right, I picked the last one. Where do you want to go next?
Okay, I think we should go for these two. That one and that one because they're the same.
Yeah, they're the same manufacturer. These are both from Retro Fighters. This is the older one they did, which is the Duelist, I want to say is the name. And I actually just got this one in. I haven't had a chance to really go hands-on with this one too much. I did a quick little just, grabbed it out of the box and messed with it. Yeah. But this is the new Battler GC. And I think this has like a sibling design called the Blade that's like the same general design, but they flip the stick and D-pad.
Yeah, so from this one, I'll talk about this one first. So this one, I felt like the sticks like didn't feel bad. Like the sticks feel pretty good.
And the gate actually does something unlike last time?
Yeah, and the gate, like the gates there, the stick range and stuff, and the stick feel. The C-Stick, like its cap kind of sucks. But aside from that, this one's decent. That's where my nice things end. The buttons, again, I don't know what it is about like these third-party controllers. They always the A buttons just don't feel.
There's like
right.
an extra stiffness.
It feels like.
Yeah. Now I will say, and we talked about this a little bit before we shot. I do think you have a slight habit of what is a regular person's, like, let's say the scale is 1 through 10, right?
Yeah.
A lot of people will be like, oh, like 1 through, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. For you, I feel like it's like 1, 2, 3, 4, 9, 10. Like, I feel like as soon as it's not like, if it's not like near the feeling you're looking for, because you really want to attain what that original OEM A button feels like.
Well, even still that, like, I mostly agree. I think my standards for controllers are pretty high, but like, I like not just like GameCube, but like, other controllers, like the Xbox feels great. Like the PlayStation controller feels great. Like you can have good feeling buttons that aren't a GameCube one.
Yeah, for sure.
But as heresy as it sounds, I would rather play Smash Bros on an Xbox controller than a lot of these.
I mean, those buttons do feel good.
Yeah.
how did this one for the front-facing buttons like feel better for you? Because this is the newer one.
Yeah.
I don't know if it's meant to replace that one. I think they still list that one as well, but the Battler is the more recent release.
It's like I'd say the face buttons on these are slightly better. Like, I think the ergonomics on this one are better. Like, this one here feels a little wonky with the grips. Like, the geometry's weird. This one's actually pretty comfy. It reminds me of the Wii, not the Wii U Pro controller, but the Wii Classic.
The Wii Classic controller.
Yeah. Where it's kind of like that SNES kind of feel with the grips on the bottom, but not like as sharp.
Yeah.
But it's
they rounded
the
it out a little
ergonomics
more.
aren't bad. The left and right shoulders feel kind of spongy.
They kind of have that DualShock 3 style,
I was about
right?
to say, yeah. They don't feel the gates. So the A buttons, they aren't great, but they're better than that one. But the sticks, I think, are a downgrade because whereas this one, it just had so much more travel. This one, the distance, it feels like it's travel. It's sticking out. It's rounded. Whereas on this, it's like flat and kind of like pressed in, so the distance doesn't feel as much.
Yeah.
And it's the gate is just
it's
smaller.
Which, if you're unfamiliar with like why travel distance is an important thing, more travel distance basically means that there's more area you're able to cover with refined movement, and the shorter distance, less refined control, basically.
Okay. All right, so let's move on to, before we get to the one that's like really talking about the headlines.
Yes, we all know everyone's waiting for this one to be talked about, because it's actually the one that came out recently that, part of the reason, we actually didn't plan for this, it just happened to release like right before.
Yeah,
we'll get back to him,
this is the one that I think is, I'm gonna have the most to say on. This one, the company actually reached out to me. So like, I'm not like, to be clear, I'm not like endorsing it or anything like that. They reached out, they said, hey, we wanna make GameCube Joy Cons. They reached out to me on Twitter and they're like, well, would you be willing to like give feedback or whatever? And I was like, sure. And they sent me a bunch of like,
mock-ups of what they were trying.
They sent
the
me
references they were using.
They sent me renders and I was like, no bad. Many times. So this is Binbok, by the way. They made, I haven't tried their other stuff.
So Binbok, if you're not familiar with the name, the thing they're most popular for was they made a pair of wireless Joy-Cons that was basically following up on Hori's Split Pad Pro. The big selling point being that since they're unlicensed, they can be a little cheaper, and they're wireless. There's no like official third-party wireless Joy-Con options out there. They all have to be connected to the tablet. So Binbok made like a big size, comfortable one, and they now want to make a GameCube one. So this isn't out yet. This is even final, right? This is like a pre-production one that you were able to check out.
Yeah. So this one here is pre-production. So I don't know what all they're planning on changing, but from what I've gathered, it's mostly done except the textured finish. So they messaged me. And they asked if I'd be willing to offer some assistance, and I was like, oh yeah, totally. Because I want to see these guys make good controls.
Yeah, you want there to be a real option.
I want it to be good. Like I still get messages all the time like, can I buy them? Can I buy them? I'm like, no, it's not for sale.
Well, yeah, I mean, how long did it take you to make this one again?
Too long.
Yeah, exactly. Like it's not something you are not built for wide scale distribution.
Building one of them gave me I developed a caffeine addiction building one of them. So like I don't want to go into production of it. If you want to do something like I got the Sheeta here, like these are Wii portables. We sell the parts to make them on 4-layer tech. I released the files for these.
Now that one's a plug.
Yeah, that's a plug. Yeah, that's so cool. I'm so proud of what the community's done with that. So these guys reached out. They're like, oh hey, here's some mock-ups. What do you think? And it looked like early 2000s Mad Cats. Like it wasn't great. Right. So I was like, squirt bottle, no, bad. And told them, they wanted to do stuff like, they were like, oh, we could do back buttons and we could do turbo buttons and RGB LEDs and stuff. And I'm like, the people who are going to buy this don't care about that stuff. I always feel like controller companies miss that. Yeah. They focus on like the flashy features rather than focusing on it just getting the bread and butter right, like making it feel good. Because
it's also a lot easier to pitch that, right? Like you can list all special features you want on a controller box. It's harder to push, oh, this is the force requirement for pressing down A and what kind of feedback you're going to get, right? Like exactly. it's harder to communicate, and so sometimes it's easier to not necessarily get away with. Like they're not necessarily looking to like sell a bad product. It's sales pitches on the box, right?
Yeah, it's like marketing. What can you throw on a spec sheet?
Yeah.
So a lot of these, you'll notice they hit a lot of the spec sheet. But it's not the direction I wish controller manufacturers would go. So when they came to me and they said, we're gonna make them, and I said the first thing was get first-party controllers. And they came back to me and were like, oh, we got all these, and they're all third-party controllers. And I'm like, no. So they made this, and it feels like the third-party controllers. That's just what it feels like. While a lot of these get a lot of the similar ergonomics, they still aren't hitting it. They're still feeling like the third-party controllers.
Well, button stick feel is
the buttons. Yeah. The buttons and the sticks.
Yeah, and triggers definitely in this one, right? Because this went for like a clicky register, I think, right?
Yeah, the triggers aren't too bad, but they changed the design of the triggers. They went with this kind of hinge similar to the Joy-Con rather than the kind of full sliding mechanism like on these.
Yeah.
Here. Which is kind of a bummer, but you know, that's all subjective. It's opinions. Yeah, I'm gonna go for that one. Let's go to this one.
You want to go to
We can go to the one people are talking about.
Yeah, so we didn't even plan this because we didn't know this was coming out. Like, we planned for you to come by here and do this whole anniversary video, and then while we were waiting for the date for you coming out here, these just suddenly got announced and released.
Yeah.
And I actually missed the window for the initial shipment. I have ordered one, but it's coming later, I think like end of February.
Yeah.
We actually got these from a friend of yours.
Rocker Gaming. Yeah, Rocker Gaming was super awesome. Thank you. He overnighted these to us, and they arrived just in time.
Yeah, actually,
so we would not have had these if it wasn't for him.
Yeah, so
he
really
has a YouTube channel. He does like modding and stuff. It's pretty cool.
Yeah. So these are the ones that are actually blowing up the internet right now, though, because they're actually fully released. I think people have seen the Binbok ones as being pitched.
Yeah,
but this is actually market now.
Because this one's a pre-production prototype.
Yeah.
I can't really provide too much criticism on it yet. You know, beyond it feels just like a third-party GameCube controller. If you felt that.
But this one, in essence, I think kind of is going for a similar vibe that one was, in that it's taking the basic idea of a GameCube Joy Con where you're getting the shape, you're getting the button layout, they're doing the ABXY in the GameCube style, but there absolutely is some focus on doing modern bells and whistles type stuff, right? Yeah. Like you're getting the back buttons over here. Obviously this is like Joy-Con style, so you can attach it to the side of it or use it as a single controller. And I mean, that T's got to be a turbo button, right?
Yeah, I presume so. One thing I thought was pretty cool is it has dual USB-Cs here. So you can charge each of the Joy-Cons individually with USB-C, which is nice. It's got some bells and whistles like the light up buttons. But in my opinion, so the stick actuation actually feels really nice, but the gates, I don't know what it is about them. Like they're supposed to twist or remove, but maybe something's wrong with me because they twist.
Yeah, we literally got this morning, so we're still figuring it out as we go along.
But they twist and they don't. I got it. Okay, you just pull the stick.
Oh, you just pull the stick?
Pull the stick.
Yeah, that's easy. Yeah, and then it just loosens that. Okay.
Yeah.
Because it did come with more rings, but I don't know. Oh, because it's a circle gate. That's not it's not the 8-point gate.
It has two things here, where it has a circle gate and a round gate, so you can swap these out. There's like latches, you put this in.
Yeah. But the main point is this changes you from the more traditional, like 8-pointed gate, the octagon gate that the original had, and then these are also circular ones.
It turns in, and it pulls out, and then you can put in the round gate, and then clicks into place, and now you've got a round gate. This is a really cool concept. Like the gates, I actually like it because you can change the feel. It's a nice option. But what I gotta say is this current mechanism that it does at the very least, it doesn't feel like you're hitting like a sturdy wall.
Yeah.
It feels like,
I think it might have to do with the fact that the gate is removable and swappable.
Yeah, because it's loose.
Exactly.
It's not like,
it's not one solid piece of plastic.
And it's not super tight on it. It's the feel it has. It's like, I don't know if vibration's the word, but like there's like there's a little bit of give.
Yeah, it doesn't feel like you're hitting as solid of a wall.
Yeah,
basically.
so it feels like you're hitting something that's kind of like
so if you're doing a lot of back and forths and like fast movements, it's more noticeable.
Whenever you hit the edge of it, it just doesn't feel.
But I will say though, is that something you noticed? Is it the kind of thing where it's noticeable immediately, or did you notice it because we went back to back with all these different ones?
I noticed it immediately. It's probably because I'm a GameCube controller snob, so like, and if you listen to that sound, it's like, it's kind of higher pitch.
Right.
But the D-pad actually doesn't feel that bad. It's clicky, short travel. I wish it was kind of like more concave. I'll let you feel that. But the sticks themselves feel pretty decent, aside from like the gates there.
Yeah.
But then the buttons fall flat.
The D-pad's interesting too because it has a clicky register, but it's like a soft one.
Yeah,
like it's not a hard click. Like for instance, one thing people did with the regular Joy-Cons was mod D-pads onto them, but we're still using the 4-button switches underneath, so it just has super clicky pushback. This isn't to that same extent, but you are getting a little bit. It's kind of a soft mix. Interesting. I like that, actually.
Yeah. The X button feels fine, but like the A button doesn't feel great.
Yeah, a little soft.
So this comes back to just my opinion, where all these features are really cool, but in my opinion, I think a lot of these third-party controllers, they still all feel like third-party controllers. They still feel like the controller you'd give to your little brother, and then you take the Switch Pro controller.
Right.
As these controller companies are focusing on these features and these marketing points and all this stuff, I feel like it just leaves this big gap open in the market where some controller company can come in and make a controller that just feels awesome.
Yeah, and I even remember back when you did the video, you had a bunch of people reach out to you trying to buy the Joy Cons or if you could make more, which didn't really make sense for you. But there were also some other projects that started coming out where other people were finding ways for people to do this themselves if they wanted.
Yeah, even though it's a really hard project, I released the files for these, and it's been really cool to see what people have done with them. Like a guy named Camp, he's really smart dude. He's taken these and he's actually made a 3D printed version of them. So like you're able to, rather than sacrificing a Waybird and like doing all this body work like I did, he just made a design that's 3D printable, and he's been taking my project and running with it, and it's so cool. Here, I'll let you hit your overall opinion. What's your...
What, about all these?
Yeah, so assuming this, and I guess mine are off the table, because that's kind of like cheating. It'd be kind of dumb if I just said, oh, mine's better, get lost.
Yeah, okay, so if I have to like pick just one of these to use, obviously not including the OEM options and stuff, it like depends a little bit on what I want, right? Because, you know, we were talking about this earlier, I think ergonomics and button-wise, these ones feel really good. But I have lots of options for traditional inputs, you know, and I'm really thinking right now of, okay, I want to play something that is GameCube oriented, and a large part of that for me is making sure it has this style ABXY layout, right? Like that's a huge part of the GameCube controller to me, because it's so important that there's that focus on A is the most important button, you're using it more often, you're gonna be hitting it a lot, and then you have quick, easy access to the other three when they come up. In which case, you know, leaning in that direction, based on grip feel and the little time I've spent with them so far, I think I actually like the Battle the most.
Yeah.
I really like the grip shape on it. It feels comfortable to me. I think you were comparing it earlier to sort of like the Wii Classic, right?
Yes.
Controller, yeah. It has that kind of vibe to it. Don't love the triggers on it as much. And yes, there are absolutely some better A buttons in this mix here, but I think while maintaining this layout, I'm really happy with how this one overall feels. OEM still wins out a little bit, you know, but if I'm looking for a wireless Switch controller option that meets that sort of GameCube controller criteria, I think this is my go-to. I might be doing some more focused videos on these later, because this is a little more knee-jerk.
Yeah. So my opinion, ignoring the first-party options and stuff like that use like the actual GameCube controller parts, I would go with this one. This one I hate the least in terms of how it feels, because although the GameCube placement is like important over the Diamond, is the button actuation, which none of these guys have hit so far, in my opinion. The sticks, you got to have the stick feel, and even though it doesn't have the gauge, the sticks feel like Xbox.
It's the right tension that you like. Yeah, tension and fluidity feels right.
It feels like a Wii U Pro stick, kind of like the Wii U Pro or Switch Pro stick. Like it feels like that, and these buttons, like the feel of them feels better than any of these. And the shoulder buttons, although they aren't great, if I had to pick out of any of these, this is the one I would play with. I think a third-party company could make a lot of money if they just buy a GameCube controller,
do that again.
Make one that has the text, either one of these two texts on it, a Smash Bros. Logo or a GameCube logo on it. Buy it. Make a controller that feels just like this, and you will make a lot of money. There's a reason why these are still so expensive, and people it's got such a cult following.
Yeah, well, and that's also the reason why so many companies have tried making similar ones, even though they're not actually living up to it, because there's that demand for...
And it's not just GameCube, it's like first-party controllers. I wish I could see more third-party companies, you know, even these decades later, you know, like they had... It was really like with the 6th generation that they really, like with the DualShock 2 and the GameCube controller and the second version of the Xbox controller.
Yeah, the S.
The S.
Yeah.
That like, they really nailed it down. And since then, like the first party controllers have nailed it, but none of the third parties have, in my opinion.
Yeah.
but
unless you're buying like a $300 Pro one or something.
Yeah, like,
and even then, that's a very different market.
Yeah, like my attitude is I'm still kind of disappointed with the options. Maybe I'm just too spoiled by using like first-party controllers all my life. So
for sure, yeah, no, I get it, and like that is the trade-off with a lot of third-party ones is that rarely does button actuation and such really fully live up. You can get ones that are close or ones that are at least better than other third-party options, and then you're falling back on a lot of the additional functions and features, special bells and whistles, some of which I do like. Like for me, I will say that while button actuation is important, sometimes I'll absolutely pick something that has slightly worse buttons but has back buttons as well because I really like the options that opens up to me. But that's the thing, right? Is like if I could have both, that'd be great.
Yeah, that'd be great.
I will. Okay, so I think that's a good wrap up of a lot of ones we have. There's one we didn't really talk about though.
Yeah.
Now, I haven't had a ton of time with this one just yet. I am planning on doing a more full video, either trying out this one a bunch or my own personal one when it comes in a couple months. So if you don't want to miss it on the video, make sure to subscribe.